Hello, my name is Ink and welcome back to Ink Reads. So today I am going to be sharing with you the books I have read between January and actually now, because there weren't like that many books. So I felt like I should just go ahead and share all of them. So I have a big stack right here in front of me. It's like just out of frame. So I'm just going to go through every book and give you some of my thoughts and maybe my star ratings if I remember what they are, and just, yeah, let's get started. Okay, so the first book I actually read this year was Emma by Jane Austen. Hi, kitty. Oh, baby. That's my cat. I think she heard me talking and decided to come see what's going on. Oh, I know. So Emma follows a girl named Emma, and it's just another kind of Jane Austen book where you follow the society that they're in and their interactions with like their neighbors. And Emma as a character is very... What are you doing? I know! And Emma as a character is just very like uppity and thinks she's better than everybody, and that's part of her character growth throughout the novel, is that she learns to kind of not be so uppity and think she's better than everybody. But it's a bit annoying at first how exclusatory she is, and then she picks one person and is like, I'm gonna make this person better, even though by societal terms they shouldn't interact, and it's so weird. And she left me. My kitty left me. This book was a little tedious, I guess. It just took a long time to feel like we were getting anywhere. There's like long stretches of not a lot happening. Like we're waiting for characters to come back from being on like a vacation or something, and it just feels like it's taking forever to get to the point. But that's kind of true of these type of novels of this time period. Is it's a lot of like societal stuff and watching people interact, and I feel like that's just kind of a part of some of these novels. I've only read Pride and Prejudice by this author before, so that was kind of similar in that you're waiting for a lot of stuff to happen and you kind of gotta sit through some like them taking a vacation and then them coming back and them interacting with each other in a appropriate way for the time period, and not really saying what they're thinking, and that's just kind of part of this. Overall though, I did enjoy it. I just felt like we could have gotten there a little quicker. It was a good read and I really enjoyed the love interest, but it just took a while to get there. Alright, next up I read Heartstopper Volume 1. This is one of the cutest things I've ever read. So this is about two boys who meet. One of them is openly gay and the other one is apparently straight. And it's just, this one is mainly about their friendship. And Charlie kind of starts to develop a crush on Nick, but this one it felt more about the friendship than it felt about the actual romance. I thought it was so cute. It's one of the cutest things I've ever read. I love this graphic novel. I have read all three. We're gonna see the other two later in this video. But I really loved it. I thought it was really cute. I would give it probably 4 or 4.5 stars. Or maybe even 5 stars. I can't remember what I ranked any of these because I read this back in January, but it was so cute. I know I'm not doing great with the summaries, so I will leave everything in the description down below. If you want to look anything up, I will leave the Goodreads link so you can look up these books and see what they're about if you're interested in them. But I just thought this was a really cute, quick read. I really enjoyed it. And I'm really excited to see Volume 4 because that comes out later this year. So I'm super excited for these. So next I read the graphic novel of one of my favorite books of all time, and that is The Great Gatsby graphic novel. I don't know if you can really see it. The light's kind of catching it weird. Here's the cover. I hope you can see that. But essentially, The Great Gatsby follows a man named Nick and his interactions with Gatsby and Tom and Daisy. Tom and Daisy are his friends from way back, and then Gatsby is his neighbor. And it's just kind of following all of their interactions and their drama as it unfolds. So this is the graphic novel. According to the inside flap, it was actually done by F. Scott Fitzgerald's great-granddaughter, contributed a personal introduction to the work, and I think kind of got this started. So this is like sanctioned by a descendant of F. Scott Fitzgerald, which feels really cool, which is why I decided to pick this one up as opposed to a different one. And it's just a really nice graphic novel adaptation. It really brought me back into the world of The Great Gatsby, and I got really invested in it. So if you're looking for a quicker version of it, maybe consider picking this up. Next is the chunkiest book I have read so far this year, and that is Queen of Air and Darkness by Cassandra Clare. So this is the third book in the, what is it called? The Dark Artifices trilogy, I think. So this trilogy follows a new group of kids. It follows Emma Carstairs and the Blackthorn family. And you definitely have to read the previous books by Cassandra Clare to read this trilogy, like The Mortal Instruments and The Infernal Devices, to get like a full understanding of what's going on in these books and also not be spoiled, because these books definitely spoil it. I will say this book is probably my favorite of the trilogy. My memory of the other two, though, is not super great, so take that with a grain of salt. But I really enjoyed this book. It did drag in parts just because it is so long. And there was one plot point that I wasn't super thrilled about, and that kind of took up a big chunk of the book, and I was like, do we really need to be doing this? But overall, I really enjoyed it. I think it was a great conclusion to the trilogy, and I really liked the way they wrapped things up. And the way they kind of dealt with the major problem I thought was really cool. So this was a great read. I ended up binge reading the last 200 or 300 pages at like 2 in the morning. So if that's any indication of how much I enjoyed this, there you go. Next, I read Nimona by Noelle Stevenson. So this book follows an evil man named, let's see, Lord Blackheart. It's been a while, I'm sorry, I'm terrible with character names. And Lord Blackheart is fighting against the good, and he kind of reminds me of Dr. Doofenshmirtz from Phineas and Ferb in the way that he doesn't really want to win. He just kind of wants to fight, and he knows that it's not his place to win and take over. He just knows that he's going to continue to fight that. And then Nimona kind of comes in and screws all that up, essentially. And she's like, oh no, if you want to do this, then we're gonna like kill a bunch of people. And he's like, no, no, no. So I had mixed feelings about this. I really enjoyed Lord Blackheart and his nemesis, and I thought that was a really great aspect to the story. But Nimona irritated the heck out of me, because she just kept taking things too far. And I understand, because we get to see her backstory. I understand why she is the way she is. But she kept taking things way too far, and did take things way too far in the end. And that just didn't vibe with me. I didn't enjoy it as much as a lot of other people seem to enjoy it. I just had a few problems with the way Nimona was doing things. And I couldn't kind of suspend my morality, I guess, for this. Because sometimes when you're watching like a villain as the main character, you can kind of be like, alright, well this isn't real, so I'm gonna root for them even though they're the bad guy, because it doesn't really matter because it's not real. But for this, for some reason, I couldn't suspend that, and I kind of had to be like, okay, this is too much. So I found it to be a little much from Nimona. I really enjoyed the other characters, but Nimona personally just kind of got on my nerves. Next, I read All Systems Red by Martha Wells. This is the first book in the Murderbot Diaries They are teeny tiny books about a murder bot. Now, it calls itself Murderbot because in its past, it kind of had this thing where it murdered a bunch of people. All the Murderbot knows is that it killed a bunch of people, and it doesn't know why or what happened. So in book 2, you get to discover, like, what really happened. Book 1, you follow Murderbot as they get placed with a bunch of humans. And this book is really great because Murderbot is so, like, does not give a crap. And it's hilarious. So Murderbot, normally these bots have a government sanctioned chip in them that keeps them under control. Well, Murderbot hacked its chip. So now it's in control. But the thing is, it doesn't really want to kill a bunch of people or go on a murder spree or anything like that. It just wants to essentially watch Netflix and chill. By itself, though, because I think this is an asexual robot. This book is just a lot of fun. It kind of follows Murderbot as it tries to, you know, decide how much to intervene and how much to tell the humans. It's trying to hide the fact that it hacked its government module. And it's just a lot of fun. I really recommend it. I think I gave it 4 stars. It was a little hard to get into at first, just for me personally, but once the action picked up, I really enjoyed it. Okay, next we have Tweet Cute by Emma Lord. So this book follows 2 rival, what would you call it, like restaurants, I guess. And one of them is like this huge fast food chain, and the other one is like a small independent restaurant. And the big chain is accused of taking a recipe from the small independent restaurant, and it starts this whole Twitter war. And essentially it ends up being like an enemies to lovers situation where they at first are like fighting each other over social media, and then they start to get more playful and like they meet each other in real life and they start to get more involved and things like that. I had mixed feelings about this book personally. I didn't enjoy it as much as a lot of other people did. Like, it was a perfectly good book. It was really entertaining. I liked the way that the relationship developed. I thought that was really good. I think the reason that I didn't like it was because of the main character's brother. His twin brother got on my nerves so much because he would do things and then there would be no repercussions for it. Like, he would just do like these things that were so rude or so, like, I guess not part of the plan, or he would just do these kind of, he would kind of have these like lash out moments online, and then there would be no repercussions for it, and they were just fine in the end. And I was like, there needs to be some sort of like feeling on this, some sort of like repercussions, some sort of like, we're gonna work on this and eventually we'll be okay, not just, oh, everything's okay and I've totally forgotten about the thing you just did. That really put her in a bad place. Like, I don't know. It just seems like that could have been a little better, but other than that, I really enjoyed this. It was a nice contemporary read. If you're looking for like a nice romance contemporary, pick up this. It was really good. I like how so far I'm just like, yeah, I had all these problems, but I still liked it. But I do want to explain, like, I do still enjoy these books. I'm just pointing out, like, the reason why... I'm just pointing out the reason why I might not have given it, like, 5 stars, as opposed to giving it, like, 3 or 4. So I hope that's coming across, that I'm still enjoying these books. I'm just not in love with them, like I am with a couple of these other books. For example, Heartstopper Volume 2 by Alice Oseman. So this is a continuation of the first one as we start to explore what exactly the relationship is between Nick and Charlie and what they're gonna do about it. And it's still so cute. I got this, I picked it up off my shelf and was like, okay, I'll read the first few pages. And I just stood up next to my bookshelf and read the whole thing. Like, I was just, my feet were tired and I was so tired of standing up, but I just stood there and read the whole thing because it was so cute and I did not want to put it down. So, another great read. Next is one of the most beautiful books that I own, and that is With the Fire on High by Elizabeth Acevedo. So this book follows a teenage girl who has a, I think, 2-year-old daughter. She's still in high school, and she wants to be a chef. And that is just such an interesting concept. I've never seen a YA book that has a teenage girl with a kid where they've like already had the kid and you get to see them interact with the kid and be a parent. Like, I've never really seen that before, so that was a really cool element to the story, and seeing how she deals with being a parent along with still being a teenager and wanting to do teenager things. It was such an interesting element that was, it was really cool. I would say the only frustrating thing about this is I found the writing to be a little, I hate to say amateur, but because it was just, it used a lot of cliches, I think. Kind of used that she held in a breath that, or she let out a breath that she didn't know she had been holding. And it used it twice on the same page. And it was just, it was a little odd. I haven't read her other books, so I don't know how they read. But I know her other books are written in verse, and this one is written like a regular novel. So other than that, I really enjoyed this book. I think it's a great read. I really recommend it. I think I gave it 4 stars. So if you're looking for something with food and a cute little kid and exploring those themes, I really recommend this book. Next is the best book I have ever read, and that is The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. I read it earlier this year. If you watched my 21 books to read in 2021 video, which I recommend, and I will leave the little card if you want to go watch that. But I loved this book, and I want to reread it again this year because it was so good. I think my cat's trying to figure out who the hell I'm talking to. It's YouTube, sweetie. I'm talking to YouTube. She hears birds. So this book follows Linus Baker, who is a sort of agent who goes to different orphanages of magical children to make sure they are good to be lived in and that they're safe for the orphans and that it's like a good place to live. So he is sent on the ultimate secret mission of going to the specific orphanage. I cannot say that word right. Orphanage. He goes to this specific place for a month to make sure it's a good place to live in, and it's full of like magical children that are so essentially rare. So they're super rare children that you don't really see in this world. So it's kind of him and this orphanage, and it's full of found family. It's got a bit of romance in it, though it's really light on the romance, which I appreciated because it's all about found family, and it is so cute. It is the best book I've ever read. It's the first book I actually tabbed. It's so cute. Read it. Read it. I command thee. Read it. I don't command you, but like, read it. It's really good. Okay, next I read The Lost Apothecary by Sarah Penner. So this book follows a dual point of view. It follows an apothecary in the 1800s, I want to say, or maybe 1700s. It might be 1700s actually, and her assistant, and then it follows a modern day woman, and it's kind of how their stories intertwine, though I didn't really like the way their stories intertwined in the end. I thought that was a little, I don't know, it was fine. I will say I loved the story in the past, in the late 1700s I think it is. I loved seeing the apothecary story, and that was so interesting. And the modern day story just wasn't for me because it dealt with a lot of issues that I couldn't find relatable, and I was just kind of bored by it, honestly. I just wanted to get back into the apothecary story. I would still recommend this book because I think the problems I had with it were just a lack of being able to relate to it, because it deals with issues like divorce and things like that that I can't find relatable because I'm only 19. So, I mean, I would still recommend this if you're interested. The apothecary story was really interesting. So I think I still gave this like 4 stars or maybe 3.5 stars, but I would still really recommend it, and I think it was a good read. And this is also my book of the month pick for March. So this was my first book of the month, which was really cool. Next, I read the second book in the Murderbot Diaries, Artificial Condition by Martha Wells. And this book, like I said earlier, follows the Murderbot as it goes to a certain location to investigate its past and try to figure out what the heck happened and why it calls itself Murderbot, essentially. Like, it knows that it killed a bunch of people, but it doesn't know why, or if it was his fault, if it hacked its government module and then killed people, or if the killing of people was the reason that it hacked its government module. Like, they're just trying to figure out what the heck happened. This was a really great read. Again, I found it a little hard to get into at first, but once I kind of got into it, it was a lot of fun. And I really enjoyed the AI on the ship. Was hilarious, and I highly recommend this book. Next, I have The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. So I have mixed feelings about this book. I tabbed the hell out of it. I don't know if you can see that. Probably not. Oh, there we go. I think you can see it now. So I tabbed it a lot and I got fairly into it. The pink tabs are like all of the ones where Luke showed up. So I tabbed like every instance that he showed up in the book because I found that character to be so interesting, and that was the best part of the book for me, was seeing that character interact with Addie. But for some reason, and I cannot put my finger on why, I think it was the flashbacks to the past, it was just really hard for me to get into this book. I was kind of underwhelmed by it. I think I went into it just with all the hype surrounding it and got too high of expectations going into it, which I really caution people against going in with high expectations, because for me, whenever I go in with super high expectations, I'm just kind of let down. And that's what happened with this book, unfortunately, is I went in with super high expectations and was kind of let down. I still did enjoy this book. I gave it 4 stars because anything less just felt wrong to give this book. But like I said, I just found it a little hard to get into. I was kind of bored by the flashbacks to the past until we got into the part where they were just more about Luke than they were about her. Then I was a little more interested and excited for the flashbacks to the past, especially, I think it was, I can't remember if it was Chicago or New Orleans, that I was like, I want to see this scene. But I was really into the story in the present, and this is such an interesting concept. So I still do really recommend you read this book because it's such an interesting concept, and the execution of it was still really good. Next is Heartstopper Volume 3 by Alice Oseman. Again, this is just a continuation of them kind of figuring out who they are together. This volume actually explores interesting things like eating disorders and things like that, which I thought was really interesting. It also explores depression a little bit, which I thought was really great that it had that representation both for depression and for eating disorders, and I think that's going to get explored more in the next book. So I thought that was really great that the author chose to include that, and I really enjoyed this volume once again. I blasted through it, and I highly recommend this series. Next is a book I kind of had to force myself through, and that was This Is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El-Mohtar and Max Gladstone. I hope I said those names right. So this story follows 2 rival agents in a time war, so it finds them at different locations and different times. And I just found this book so hard to get into. I was so confused by, I don't know, the writing style, I guess. I just didn't vibe with. I found it to be kind of confusing. The world building wasn't super clear, so I was just kind of confused by it. I think it could have explained itself a little better because it acted like the reader was supposed to know a whole bunch of stuff that we just didn't know. So I ended up just being really confused by it. Once we got more into it being just interactions between Red and Blue, I got more into it. I think around page 70 is when I got more into it, and I think I blasted through the last part of the book. But I just found myself not really wanting to pick up this book, which was a shame because I've heard a lot of great things about it. I ended up giving it 3 stars because I liked the way it ended and I thought it was a really interesting read after a certain point, but I just found it really, really hard to get into and almost DNF'd it at one point. Finally, we have one of the cutest books I have ever read, and that is The Tea Dragon Society by Katie O'Neill. This is a pretty short little book about tea dragons, which are essentially small little dragons, and you make tea from them. So they have, I guess it's, let me see, it tells you in the back that it's like their feathers or their flowers or the leaves that come off of them, so it doesn't hurt them to make the tea, but you take like the leaves that come off of like their horns or their ears or something, you take those leaves and you can brew tea with them, and the tea ends up being really good. And this was just such a cute story. The dragons are so cute. I love the found family elements and the friendship elements, and it's just a really, really cute read. So that is all for the books I have read recently. In total, I think I read about 16 books. So let me know if you enjoyed this video and you want to see more like it. Be sure to subscribe to this channel and also subscribe to my gaming channel, Ink and Plum Bobs. You can follow my social media in the description below. And thank you all so much for watching this video. Bye!